I remember the first time I laid eyes on Emily. We were in college, both attending a mutual friend's party. She was wearing this bright yellow dress that seemed to light up the room. Her laughter was infectious, her smile genuine. I was hooked instantly. We spent the entire night talking, oblivious to the chaos around us. That night was the beginning of our journey together. Emily was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. She was smart, funny, and incredibly supportive. After college, we both got jobs in the city. I became a software engineer, and she worked as a marketing executive. We were a power couple, at least in our eyes. Our careers took off, and soon we were able to buy a beautiful house in the suburbs. Life was good. Weekends were our sacred time. We would explore new hiking trails, visit local wineries, and host dinner parties with friends. Emily had a knack for making everyone feel welcome, and our home was often filled with laughter and good times. We shared a love for cooking, often spending hours in the kitchen trying out new recipes and creating culinary masterpieces together. Family was important to both of us. Though we had no children, we often visited our parents and siblings, making sure to stay connected despite our busy lives. Emily was particularly close to her sister Jenna, and they would often have long conversations late into the night. I cherished these moments of quiet, knowing Emily was happy and content. Our love life was equally fulfilling. Emily and I had a deep emotional connection that translated into a passionate physical relationship. We communicated openly, ensuring that we were always in tune with each other's needs and desires. Our marriage, to me, felt like a perfectly tuned symphony. Emily was the social butterfly in our relationship, always organizing outings and gatherings. She thrived on social interaction, while I was more of an introvert, content to follow her lead. It worked for us. Her vivacity complemented my calm demeanor, and together we made a balanced team. But even the most perfect-seeming lives have their cracks. Looking back, I can see the small signs, the little things that hinted at the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. At the time, I was blissfully unaware, thinking our love was unshakable, our bond unbreakable. I poured myself into my work, perhaps more than I should have. The tech industry is demanding, and late nights at the office became more frequent. Emily, with her flexible hours, often managed the household. I appreciated her understanding and support, never suspecting that my absences were creating a void she might seek to fill elsewhere. When we were together, things were perfect. We laughed, we loved, we dreamed about our future. We talked about traveling more, maybe even moving to a new city for a fresh start. Those dreams seemed so real, so achievable. I had no reason to doubt her loyalty or our future together. The first 2 years of our marriage were blissful, almost surreal in their perfection. We were that couple everyone envied, the ones who seemed to have it all. I wore my love for Emily like a badge of honor, proud and confident that we could face anything together. But as I said, every perfect story has its shadows. Ours were just beginning to form, unnoticed and unacknowledged. Little did I know that the foundations of our seemingly solid marriage were starting to crack, and the woman I adored was about to become a stranger in my own home. Life with Emily was like living in a beautiful dream. Our marriage continued to thrive, and the bond we shared grew stronger with each passing year. We traveled to various destinations, collecting memories and experiences that felt like pages torn from a romance novel. From wine tasting in Napa Valley to exploring the vibrant streets of New Orleans, our adventures were always filled with love and laughter. Emily's career in marketing flourished. Her creativity and knack for understanding people made her an asset to her company. I loved hearing her talk about her projects and seeing the passion in her eyes. She often worked late into the night, but I didn't mind. I knew she was dedicated to her career, just as I was to mine. I continued to climb the corporate ladder in the tech industry. My work was challenging, but I found it rewarding. The late nights and weekend hours were a small price to pay for the satisfaction of achieving my professional goals. Emily was always supportive, encouraging me to pursue my dreams and assuring me that we could handle anything as long as we had each other. Our social life was vibrant. We hosted dinner parties, attended charity events, and were always surrounded by friends. Emily's vivacious personality and my more reserved nature complemented each other perfectly. She was the life of the party, and I was content to stand by her side, watching her shine. Our home became a hub of activity, filled with laughter and good times. We also made time for quiet moments together. Sunday mornings were our sacred time. We'd brew a pot of coffee, curl up on the couch with the newspaper, and spend hours just talking. Those mornings were my favorite part of the week, a chance to reconnect and remind ourselves of the simple joys in life. Emily and I shared a love for the outdoors. We spent many weekends hiking, camping, and exploring nature. Our favorite spot was a secluded cabin by a lake, a place where we could escape from the hustle and bustle of city life and just be together. Those weekends were magical, filled with long walks, bonfires, and stargazing. They were a reminder of the beauty and tranquility that could be found in each other's company. We talked often about our future, dreaming of the places we'd visit and the things we'd do. We wanted to travel more, maybe even move to a different city one day. We discussed starting a family, but decided to wait until we were both ready. We were in no rush. We wanted to enjoy every moment of our time together. Looking back, those years were the happiest of my life. Emily and I were deeply in love, and our life together was everything I had ever hoped for. We were each other's rock, providing support and comfort through the ups and downs. Our marriage was built on a foundation of trust, respect, and mutual admiration. I never doubted for a moment that we would grow old together, side by side. But life, as I would soon learn, has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. Despite the love and happiness we shared, there were cracks in the foundation of our marriage that I failed to see. Little did I know, the dream I was living in was about to turn into a nightmare. The first signs were subtle, almost imperceptible. At first, I attributed them to the stress of Emily's demanding job and the increasing workload at my own. But looking back, the small changes in her behavior were like the early tremors of an earthquake, hinting at the upheaval to come. Emily began spending more time at work. Late nights became the norm, and she often had to travel for business. I understood the demands of her career and tried to be supportive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She seemed more distant, her laughter less frequent, her smiles more strained. When I asked her about it, she assured me that everything was fine, that she was just tired and stressed. Our once vibrant social life started to wane. Emily made excuses to avoid gatherings with friends, citing exhaustion or work commitments. When we did go out, she was often distracted, checking her phone frequently and stepping outside to take calls. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that she was just busy, that this was a phase that would pass. One evening, Emily came home later than usual, her face flushed and her eyes avoiding mine. "Sorry I'm late," she mumbled, heading straight to the shower. I noticed a faint scent of cologne on her clothes, a scent that wasn't mine. My heart sank, but I pushed the thought away, convincing myself that it was probably from someone she met at work. As the weeks went by, these small incidents started to add up. Emily's phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, was now always in her hand or pocket. She changed her phone's password, something she had never done before. I noticed her texting more often, her face lighting up with a smile that wasn't meant for me. One night, as we lay in bed, I reached out to hold her, but she pulled away, mumbling something about being too tired. The distance between us felt like a chasm, growing wider with each passing day. I missed the closeness we once shared, the way we could talk for hours about anything and everything. I tried to talk to her about it, but every conversation ended in a frustrating cycle of reassurances and dismissals. "It's just work," she would say. "I'm under a lot of pressure right now." I wanted to believe her, to trust that she was telling the truth, but the nagging doubt in my mind wouldn't go away. Then there were the business trips. Emily had always traveled for work, but the trips became more frequent and lasted longer. She seemed excited about them, more so than usual. I noticed new clothes in her suitcase, items she hadn't worn at home. When I questioned her about it, she brushed it off, saying she needed to look professional for her meetings. One evening, Emily's best friend, Sarah, called me. "Hey, Will, is everything okay with Emily?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "Yeah, why do you ask?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's just been acting a bit strange lately. Distant, you know? She's cancelled our last few plans, which isn't like her." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "She's been really busy with work. I'm sure it's nothing." Sarah hesitated. "I hope so. Just keep an eye on her, okay?" Her words echoed in my mind long after we hung up. Emily's behavior wasn't just affecting me. It was affecting her friends, too. I decided to confront her directly, hoping to get to the bottom of what was really going on. "Emily, we need to talk," I said one evening as she walked in the door. She looked at me warily. "What is it, Will? I feel like you've been distant lately. You're always on your phone, working late, and you've changed your password. Is there something you're not telling me?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Will, I told you it's just work. I'm under a lot of stress. You need to trust me." "I do trust you, Emily. But something doesn't feel right. I miss us, the way we used to be." Her eyes softened for a moment, and she stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. "I miss us too," she whispered. "I promise, things will get better." But things didn't get better. In fact, they got worse. The distance between us grew, and my doubts turned into suspicions. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Emily wasn't telling me, a part of her life that she was keeping hidden. One night, as she slept beside me, I couldn't help but check her phone. She had changed her password again, but her laptop was open on the bedside table. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest before opening her email. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were messages from a man named David, messages that were far too intimate to be just friendly. My hands shook as I read the words of affection, the plans to meet up, the shared secrets. Emily had been seeing someone else, someone she had met on her business trips. My world shattered in that moment. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had been betraying me. I felt a surge of anger, hurt, and disbelief. How could she do this to us, to me? I closed the laptop and lay back down, staring at the ceiling. I knew I had to confront her, but the thought of it filled me with dread. What would she say? How would she react? And most importantly, why had she done it? The confrontation happened the following morning. I woke up early, my mind racing with 1,000 questions and emotions. Emily was still asleep, her face peaceful and innocent. I watched her for a moment, wondering how someone who looked so serene could cause so much pain. I took a deep breath and decided it was now or never. "Emily," I said, gently shaking her awake. "We need to talk." She stirred, blinking her eyes open. "What is it, Will?" she asked, her voice groggy. "I found your emails," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I know about David." Her eyes widened in shock and she sat up quickly. "Will, I can explain," she started, but I held up a hand to stop her. "Explain what, Emily? That you've been cheating on me? That you've been lying to me for months? How could you do this?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." "That's not good enough," I said, my voice rising. "You owe me more than that. I need to know why." "Why, Emily?" She took a deep breath, wiping her tears. "I was lonely, Will. You were always working, always busy. I felt like you didn't have time for me anymore. And then I met David. He made me feel alive, wanted. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't stop." I felt a mix of anger and hurt. "So you just decided to destroy our marriage? Did you ever think about what this would do to us, to me?" "I did," she said softly, "and I hated myself for it. But every time I tried to end it, I felt even more alone. I didn't know what to do." I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. "You should have talked to me, Emily. We could have worked through this together, but instead you chose to betray me." She reached out, but I stepped back, avoiding her touch. "I'm so sorry, Will," she pleaded. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Well, you did," I said, my voice cold. "And now I have to figure out how to move forward." The days that followed were a blur of emotions. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, unable to wake up. Emily moved into the guest room, giving us both some space. We barely spoke, each of us trying to process the reality of our broken marriage. I decided to take a few days off work, needing time to think and figure out my next steps. I reached out to a lawyer, seeking advice on how to proceed with a divorce. The thought of ending my marriage was painful, but I knew it was the only way to start healing. Meanwhile, Emily continued to see David. She made no attempt to hide it, which only added to my pain. I couldn't understand how she could be so callous, so indifferent to the wreckage she had caused. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Is this Will?" a male voice asked. "Yes, Who is this? This is Michael. I need to talk to you about Emily. My heart skipped a beat. What about her? I think you should know that Emily has been seeing someone else besides David, he said, his voice tense. Me. The room spun, and I gripped the edge of the sofa to steady myself. What are you talking about? I'm one of her lovers, Michael admitted. I didn't know about David until recently. When I found out, I confronted her, and she admitted everything. I felt you should know the truth. My world, already shattered, crumbled even further. Emily had not one but two lovers. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. Why are you telling me this? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Because you deserve to know, Michael replied. I'm ending things with her. I can't be part of this anymore. Thank you, I managed to say before hanging up. I felt numb, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me like a physical force. How could Emily do this? How could she betray me so completely? I confronted her that night, the anger and hurt bubbling over. How could you, Emily? How could you have two lovers behind my back? Did our marriage mean nothing to you? She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Will. I don't know what to say. I was lost, confused. I never meant for it to go this far. That's not good enough, I snapped. You destroyed everything. There's no coming back from this. She sobbed, but I couldn't find it in myself to comfort her. I was too hurt, too angry. The woman I loved had become a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stand to be in the same house as Emily, so I moved in with a friend temporarily. I needed space to think, to figure out my next steps. I filed for divorce, determined to end the marriage and start the painful process of moving on. Emily continued to reach out, begging for forgiveness, but I couldn't bear to talk to her. The betrayal was too deep, the pain too raw. I knew I had to focus on healing, on rebuilding my life without her. The divorce process was grueling. Each step was a reminder of the betrayal, a reopening of the wounds that had barely begun to heal. Emily and I had built a life together, and now we had to dismantle it piece by piece. The house, the shared memories, even the mundane details of our daily routines. They all became points of contention and pain. Emily was apologetic, but her apologies felt hollow. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. We tried to keep things civil for the sake of the process, but there were moments when the anger and hurt would erupt, leading to heated arguments and tears. One day, as we sat in the lawyer's office going over the division of assets, Emily broke down. Will, please, she sobbed. I never wanted this to happen. I know I messed up, but can't we at least try to understand each other? I looked at her, feeling a mix of pity and rage. Understand what, Emily? That you decided to have not one but two lovers, that you lied to me every day for months. What is there to understand? She wiped her tears, her hands trembling. I was unhappy, lost. I didn't know how to reach out to you. I felt like you didn't see me anymore. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my composure. And instead of talking to me, you chose to betray me. You shattered our marriage, our life together. How can you expect me to just forgive and forget? The lawyer intervened, trying to steer the conversation back to the legal matters at hand. But the damage was done. Emily and I left the office that day, knowing there was no salvaging what we had lost. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork and emotional turmoil. I tried to focus on my work, throwing myself into projects to keep my mind occupied. But everywhere I turned, I was reminded of Emily, of the life we had shared and the future we had lost. One evening, I received a call from Michael, the second lover. Will, I need to talk to you, he said, his voice tense. What is it? I asked, wary of more bad news. It's about Emily. She's been spiraling. She's drinking heavily, and I'm worried about her. I felt a pang of concern, despite everything. What do you expect me to do, Michael? She made her choices. I know, but she's in a bad place. She needs help. I sighed, feeling torn. Despite the anger and hurt, a part of me still cared about Emily's well-being. I'll talk to her parents, I said finally. Maybe they can reach out to her. I called Emily's parents that night, explaining the situation. They were shocked and saddened by the turn of events, but promised to check on her. It wasn't much, but it was all I could do. As the divorce proceedings continued, I found solace in the support of my friends and family. They rallied around me, offering comfort and advice. David, my friend who had gone through a similar experience, was especially helpful. He understood the pain and betrayal, and his words of wisdom helped me navigate the emotional minefield. One evening, David invited me over for dinner. "You need a break from all this," he said, handing me a beer. "Let's just relax and not talk about the divorce for a while." We spent the evening talking about old times, reminiscing about college days and shared adventures. It was a welcome distraction, a reminder that life went on despite the pain. As the night drew to a close, David looked at me seriously. "Will, you need to start thinking about your future. This divorce is going to be finalized soon, and you need to figure out what you want from your life going forward." I nodded, knowing he was right. "I just don't know where to start," I admitted. "Take it one step at a time," he advised. "Focus on yourself, your passions, and what makes you happy. The rest will follow." With David's words in mind, I began to take small steps towards rebuilding my life. I started going to the gym, finding solace in the physical exertion. I took up old hobbies I had neglected, like reading and hiking. Slowly but surely, I began to find a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. Then, one day, I received a message from David. "I think you should know that Emily's other lover, David, is planning to confront her. He found out about Michael and wants to get to the bottom of it." I felt a mix of curiosity and dread. This confrontation could either bring more clarity or deepen the mess. I decided to stay out of it, focusing instead on my own healing. But the confrontation happened regardless. One evening, I received a call from Emily. "Will, can you come over? Please, I need to talk to you." Reluctantly, I agreed. When I arrived at her apartment, she looked worn and tired, her eyes red from crying. "What is it, Emily?" I asked, keeping my distance. "David confronted me," she said, her voice trembling. "He found out about Michael and lost it. He demanded to know why I did it, why I betrayed both of you." "And what did you tell him?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I told him the truth," she said, tears streaming down her face. "That I was lost and confused, that I didn't know how to stop. But it didn't make things better. He's furious, and Michael has cut all ties with me." I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. "You've hurt a lot of people, Emily, including yourself." "I know," she sobbed. "I don't know how to fix this." "There's no fixing it," I said coldly. "You have to live with the consequences of your actions." With that, I turned and left, feeling a sense of finality. Emily's web of lies had unraveled, and now she had to face the wreckage she had caused. After leaving Emily's apartment that night, I felt an odd sense of closure. Her betrayal, while painful and life-altering, was now fully out in the open. She had to face the reality of her actions, and I had to find a way to move forward without her. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. Standing in the courtroom, I listened as the judge read out the terms of our separation. The house would be sold, the proceeds divided. Emily and I would go our separate ways, each to rebuild a life that had been irreparably fractured. Emily looked over at me, her eyes pleading for some sign of forgiveness or reconciliation. But I couldn't give her that. The wounds were too deep, the trust too shattered. As we left the courthouse, I walked away without looking back, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. Over the next few months, I focused on myself. I sold the house and moved into a smaller apartment in the city. It was a fresh start, a chance to build a new life on my own terms. The apartment was modest but comfortable, and I took pride in making it my own. Work became my sanctuary. The challenges and demands of my job provided a welcome distraction from the turmoil in my personal life. My colleagues were supportive, giving me the space I needed while also offering encouragement and camaraderie. I threw myself into projects, finding satisfaction in the accomplishments and the sense of purpose they provided. I also reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with over the years. We went out for drinks, caught up on each other's lives, and reminisced about the good old days. It felt good to be surrounded by people who knew me, who reminded me of who I was before the betrayal and the heartbreak. David remained a constant presence in my life. He had been through a similar ordeal and understood the complexities of healing from such deep wounds. One evening, he invited me to join him and a few friends for a weekend hiking trip. I hesitated at first, but David's insistence won me over. The trip was exactly what I needed. We hiked through the mountains, the fresh air and physical exertion clearing my mind and lifting my spirits. Sitting around the campfire at night, sharing stories and laughter, I felt a sense of camaraderie and peace that had been missing from my life. One night, as we sat under the stars, David turned to me. "Will, I know it's been a rough year for you, but you're stronger than you think. You've got a lot of life ahead of you, and you deserve to be happy." His words resonated with me. I realized that while the past year had been incredibly difficult, it had also been a period of growth and self-discovery. I had learned to stand on my own, to find strength in myself and in the support of those around me. Returning from the trip, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I decided to pursue a new passion, photography. It was something I had always been interested in but had never taken the time to explore. I bought a camera and started taking classes, finding joy in capturing the world through a new lens. Photography became a form of therapy. I spent weekends exploring the city, capturing its beauty and its rawness. The process of framing a shot, of finding the perfect moment, helped me see the world in a new light. It was a reminder that there was still beauty and wonder to be found, even in the midst of pain. One day, while out taking photos, I met a woman named Jessica. She was also a photographer, and we struck up a conversation about our favorite spots in the city. We exchanged numbers and started meeting up for photography sessions. Jessica was kind, creative, and understanding. She knew about my past but didn't pry, allowing our friendship to develop naturally. As we spent more time together, I found myself looking forward to our outings. Jessica's presence was calming, her laughter infectious. Slowly, a connection grew between us, one that felt genuine and unforced. We started going out for coffee, then dinner, and eventually, those outings turned into something more. Jessica was a breath of fresh air. She made me laugh, encouraged me to pursue my passions, and reminded me that life could still be full of joy and love. Our relationship developed at its own pace, without the pressure or complications of the past. One evening, as we walked along the waterfront, Jessica turned to me. "Will, I know you've been through a lot, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here." I looked at her, feeling a warmth and peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you, Jessica. That means more to me than you know." Life with Jessica was different from my life with Emily. It was simpler, more grounded. There were no grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just a steady, growing affection and understanding. Jessica taught me to find joy in the little things, to appreciate the present moment. Emily occasionally reached out, but I kept my distance. I needed to focus on my own healing and happiness, and that meant keeping the past firmly in the past. She had her own journey to navigate, and I had mine. As time went on, I found myself thinking about Emily less and less. The anger and hurt faded, replaced by a sense of acceptance and peace. The memories of our life together no longer held the same sting. They were simply chapters in my story, lessons learned. Jessica and I continued to grow closer. We shared our dreams, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It wasn't always easy, but it was real and honest. With her, I found a sense of stability and contentment that I hadn't known before. One afternoon, as we sat in a park watching the world go by, Jessica turned to me. "Will, what do you want for your future?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "I want to keep exploring, keep learning. I want to build a life that's full of love and happiness with someone who understands me." Jessica took my hand, her eyes bright with affection. "I want that too." And in that moment, I knew that despite the pain and the heartbreak, life had given me a second chance, a chance to rebuild, to find love again, and to create a future that was even brighter than I had imagined. Months turned into years, and life gradually settled into a new rhythm. Jessica and I continued to build a life together, one that was rooted in trust, mutual respect, and a shared passion for photography and adventure. Our bond deepened with each passing day, and I found myself feeling more at peace than I had in a long time. The divorce had been finalized, the house sold, and the proceeds split. I used my share to invest in a small photography studio downtown, a dream I had long harbored. It became a place where I could immerse myself in my work and creativity, capturing moments of beauty and joy. Jessica was my biggest supporter, helping me set up the studio and even taking on a few projects of her own. Emily had moved on as well. She eventually sought help for her drinking and worked on rebuilding her life. We maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of mutual friends and family, but our interactions were few and far between. I wished her well, but kept my distance, knowing that I needed to protect my own healing and happiness. One day, while sorting through some old boxes, I came across a photo album from my time with Emily. The pictures told the story of our life together, from the early days of our romance to the vacations and holidays we shared. I felt a pang of sadness, but also a sense of closure. Those memories were a part of my past, but they no longer defined my future. I decided to meet up with David, who had been a constant source of support through it all. We sat at our favorite bar, reminiscing about the past and discussing the future. "You've come a long way, Will," David said, raising his glass. "I'm proud of you." "Thanks, David," I replied, clinking my glass against his. "I couldn't have done it without friends like you." As the evening wore on, we talked about our plans and dreams. David had started dating again and was excited about the future. I shared my aspirations for the photography studio and my growing relationship with Jessica. It felt good to look ahead, to envision a future filled with possibility. Jessica and I continued to explore new places, taking weekend trips to nearby towns and national parks. Our adventures were filled with laughter, discovery, and a deepening sense of connection. We found joy in the simplicity of life, in the beauty of nature, and in the shared moments that made each day special. One evening, as we watched the sunset from a hilltop overlooking the city, Jessica turned to me. "Will, I love you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I know we've both been through a lot, but I want you to know that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me." I felt a surge of warmth and happiness. "I love you too, Jessica. You've brought so much light into my life. I can't imagine a future without you." We embraced, the sun casting a golden glow over us. In that moment, I knew that despite the pain and heartbreak of the past, I had found something truly beautiful. Jessica and I were building a future together, one that was grounded in love, trust, and mutual respect. Life continued to unfold in wonderful and unexpected ways. The photography studio flourished, attracting clients and opportunities that I had never imagined. Jessica and I collaborated on several projects, combining our talents and creativity to create stunning works of art. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and we found joy in the little things: a shared laugh, a quiet moment, a beautiful photograph. One day, while we were working at the studio, Jessica looked up from her camera and smiled. "Will, I've been thinking, how would you feel about us taking the next step? Moving in together, maybe even getting married someday?" Her words filled me with a sense of hope and excitement. "I'd love that," I said, taking her hand. "I can't imagine a future without you." We began making plans, looking for a place that we could call our own. It was an exciting and joyful process, filled with anticipation for the life we were building together. We found a cozy apartment with large windows and plenty of light, perfect for our photography and our love of nature. As we settled into our new home, I reflected on how far I had come. The pain of Emily's betrayal had once seemed insurmountable, but with time, support, and a renewed sense of purpose, I had found a way to heal and move forward. Jessica had been a beacon of light, guiding me through the darkness and helping me rediscover the joy in life. One evening, as we sat on our balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below, Jessica turned to me. "Will, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." I looked at her, my heart racing. "What is it?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, she revealed a simple, elegant ring. Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes as I looked at her, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. "Yes, Jessica, 1,000 times yes." We embraced, our hearts full of joy and anticipation for the future. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led me to this moment of pure happiness. Jessica and I were building a life together, one that was filled with love, creativity, and endless possibilities. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, surrounded by our closest friends and family. David was my best man, and Jessica's sister stood by her side. As we exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through all of life's challenges, I felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one that I was excited to write with Jessica by my side. As we danced under the stars, surrounded by the people we loved, I knew that despite the hardships and heartbreak, life had a way of bringing us to where we were meant to be. Jessica and I were ready to face the future together, hand in hand, with love as our guide. And so, the story of betrayal and heartache became one of healing, growth, and new beginnings. I had found a way to move on, to find peace, and to build a future that was brighter and more beautiful than I had ever imagined. With Jessica by my side, I knew that anything was possible, and that together we could create a life filled with love, joy, and endless adventures.
Thank you for watching and subscribe to the channel.